Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Claire Hayes, and I'm going to be talking to you about some back to school maintenance and information needed for this time of year. Before we get into those details, just a quick refresher. Read Live, of course, is an online platform of programs that includes Read Naturally Live, Word Warm-Ups Live, 1 Minute Reader Live, and Read Naturally Live Espanol. Read Naturally Live is the primary program that most of your students will be using. It is our flagship intervention and what we're most well known for. It covers fluency, phonics, comprehension, vocabulary, and spelling, and goes from 1st through 8th grade reading level. Word Warm-Ups Live is our phonics program. It works on decoding and phonics instruction with supports, of course, for fluency, spelling, and phonemic awareness. Our independent program is called 1 Minute Reader Live. That's a great program to recommend to people utilizing Read Live right from the beginning of the first day of school. So it's an important thing to mention in the back to school webinar here, because as soon as your kids are added to this program, they can begin working in that independent program. So please do spread that information to anyone who will be utilizing Read Live. 1 Minute Reader Live can be used with kids who read through a mid-5th grade reading level, so from 1st through mid-5th grade level, and they don't need teachers to work with them or for placement. So as teachers are getting set up, as teachers are working in the interventions and getting them ready for students, they can certainly begin, the students can begin utilizing 1 Minute Reader without any support. And then finally, we have Read Naturally Live Espanol, which is the Spanish version of Read Naturally Live. So what we're going to cover today is listed here on your screen in our brief agenda. I know that you have 2 handouts that are going to be appearing in the chat box for you. And those were also in your reminder emails. The handouts, one of them is a slideshow. So it's basically a copy of all of our picture of all the slides that I'm going to be going through today. Some of the slides you're going to see in your handout, you're not going to see in my PowerPoint per se, you're going to actually see in the program, because I'm going to log into Read Live and demo the steps that I'm going to be talking with you about. But that information is viewable as a screenshot in the handout that includes the slides. There's another handout that you have that is a 3-page handout, and I'll be referencing that as well. It takes you through the steps that we're going to go through together today. So let's go ahead and begin with optimizing your staff member module. Optimizing your staff member module, we will be, again, as I mentioned, we're going to be actually going into the program to do this. But I just want you to look at the handout that I referenced earlier, not the slides handout, but the handout that looks like what you see on your screen right now. So we have this beginning section on the very first page, optimizing your staff member module, and we have a little bit of direction and instruction about that section. Then we're also going to go into some sorting and filtering, and I'll talk about some adding schools and that sort of thing. So you can look at that handout. These 2 sections is what we're going to do right now by logging in to an actual account. So here I have my Read Live account. I'm going to, of course, click on the staff member button because I am going to log in as a staff member. So I enter my account ID, my user ID, and my password and click login. Now I suspect many of you are returning users of Read Live, but for those of you who may be new, I just want you to notice when you first log in, there is a section here that I'm highlighting that says Learn How to Get Started. So it's kind of an orientation and resources page. Just want you to be aware that it's there for you. You have information about what your role is. So as a staff member in your building, you may be in charge of administrative things. So you might be listed as an account administrator or a school coordinator. If you work with students, you are likely listed as a teacher. And so based on what your role is, you have different capabilities within the program. You can learn more about those roles by clicking on the link here. Based on your role, you will have a short to-do list. And of course, it's going to start with adding schools and staff members and then get into adding students. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about some other things as well that are specific to returning users starting a new school year. So now I'm going to click on the little picture of the house in the upper left-hand corner. And you're brought to our main page where you can see a number of squares on my screen. We call these tiles. All of the tiles can also be accessed through our drop-down menu in the upper left-hand corner. So notice the first item in the drop-down menu is Account and School Administration. That's the first tile. Then we have Staff Member Administration, and that's the next tile, and so forth. So what I'm going to start with doing is going into Account and School Administration. Right. And I want you to notice that we have a little bit of information about your licenses. It tells you how many licenses are in your account, how many licenses are available, and when your subscription ends. So very likely this time of year, you have licenses that are assigned to students who may not be utilizing the program again. So last year, maybe they used it and now they're no longer in your school, or they've gone, or they just don't need the intervention. So that will adjust as you work with the program, as you decide which students will utilize it. If you do need to change your account name for some reason, you can do that through here. You can also change your main account contact. So when staff members are added, they are assigned a role, as I mentioned before. I'm currently logged in as a main account administrator, and you can have as many account administrators within your account as you want. So if you need to change the main one, you can do that by simply selecting from the drop-down menu any staff member who is in your account and designated as an account administrator can be the main account administrator. And all that means is that that person is kind of the main contact between Read Naturally and the company. So as I mentioned, you can have 10 different account administrators or any number within the account. But the main one is the one who's kind of the connection to Read Naturally. Right. So we will go ahead and go. The other thing I wanted to mention was here is a list of your schools. You'll notice that we have different columns. One is the licenses. The schools are designated whether they are able to access any licenses that are available or whether they are able to access a select number of licenses. So for example, Northview School has been reserved exactly 25 licenses. So Northview can utilize those 25 licenses. If they need a 26th, they're going to have to come to the account administrator and ask to be assigned one if one is available. The other option is to allow schools to use any license available within the account. This is the simpler version. This is what I would recommend unless there is a reason that you need to have that specific number. So sometimes a large district account, each school is paying for their licenses separately, and then those schools want to make sure nobody uses their licenses. And so some schools and districts choose to go with the reserving license route. If you don't have that sort of a concern, it is easier to allow schools to just use whatever licenses are there. But again, that's a decision within your own school or district. You can remove schools simply by clicking delete and then saying yes. You can edit them by clicking on their name. You can change the name from here and clicking save and close. So that is some information about kind of overview account information. As I mentioned, another thing that you need to do is to make sure all the staff who will be utilizing the program are in here. So that's of course under the staff member administration section. The button, there's only 2 buttons in here at the upper left hand corner. Add staff, of course, is where you're going to go to add your staff who are not already in there. You can see that you get to assign the role. The different things that they are able to do and access are listed here. You put in their email address. As you add a teacher, you can see that her user ID auto-fills with her first letter and last name. So you can leave it like that. But if you have a different system that you use within your district, that's fine. You can just override it. The other thing I promised to show you in this section was sorting and filtering. And so I can do that here on the staff module. Just know that sorting and filtering is possible in any section within the program that has these different headers. So you can sort and filter based on the header that you see on your screen. So for example, the first one in this page is last name, then first name, user ID, school, and so forth. So if you want to have all of your teachers in alphabetical order so you can quickly find which teachers are not in there that may need to be added, you can click last name and it will sort ascending or descending. So you can do either direction just by clicking it multiple times. Let's say you want to go school by school, and you can click on the school header and it will organize them so that they are in sections. But those of you in really big districts, this might have too much information for you to view at one time. So if you click on the little 3 horizontal bars next to the heading name, you can select the first couple type in the first couple letters of the school name and click apply. And then only the teachers at that school or staff members at that school will appear. Okay, so it's a way to filter down to a more manageable set. You'll know that there is a filter on a column because you see this little funnel picture. Kind of looks like like an oil funnel for a car or a tornado. So when that funnel is there, that means that you're only seeing part of the list. You're seeing the filtered list. So in order to get your schools back, you just click on those horizontal lines again and hit reset. And now all of the staff members, regardless of school, will reappear. All right, so that covers sorting and filtering. Now what we are going to talk a little bit about is account maintenance. So if you look on your 3-page handout, account maintenance is at the bottom of that first page. That's where it begins. And your handout, your slides handout will follow what I demo here. So we will go back into the Read Live program. And we're going to go back to the home page. We will first go under student administration. And as you can see, again, under student administration, we have 6 more tiles. So we're going to show you things about importing. We'll talk briefly about single sign-on, licensing. But what I'm going to start out talking about is new school year administration. Okay, so I'm going to click on this button first. New school year administration is done at the beginning of the school year, obviously. Ideally, it is done before any teachers have started going in to get their data and their students up to the next school year. So it is very important. This section right here is an important thing to notice and consider before you make any changes in here. You want to make sure that your other staff within your account have not already made changes to their student information, okay? Because within here, you're able to, with one click, advance all students by 1 grade. With one click, you can remove all the homeroom assignments. And then you have an option to either remove student licenses and their lead teachers or retain all the student licenses and their lead teachers. So you can choose these options. So let me tell you maybe a couple different scenarios where these play out. If there's a lot of, if you have a really large account and there's movement between schools and teachers, it's pretty common for people to choose to remove all the licenses and lead teachers at the beginning of the school year and then go in and assign them, reassign them for the following year. So that is a common thing if you have a fair number of students who are going to be either no longer using the program or going to have a new teacher this school year. The option to retain licenses and lead teachers is most commonly used if you have many of the students within your account are going to be still using the program and with the same teachers. So this is common in a scenario, maybe an elementary school where the special education teacher is the primary utilizer of Read Live, and the special education teacher works with all the students using it. So she will remain that teacher. So that is a scenario where that is common. So you will click Save and Close after you choose whichever option you decide. Please know that if you decide to retain all the licenses and lead teachers, you can remove it one by one and even in groups. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. But this isn't your only opportunity to take licenses away. Also, very important is that removing licenses, removing lead teachers, making students inactive does not lose their data. Okay, so anything that a student completed last year, when you take their license away, that data from last year is still in there. So when you assign the student a license and a different lead teacher, they will be able to pick up right where they left off. Okay, so there's no damage to what happened in the past. You're simply taking that license in case you need to give it to somebody else. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is licensing students kind of at a one by one, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and select the school. You can organize by school. So we'll go into Highland School. Oh, no, Northview, sorry. That's where my students are. And you can see here that you can select a student's name and assign a license. Notice that this student is not licensed. If I assign her a license, and I select a lead teacher for her, now it says licensed in the Read RNL license column that my cursor is circling over to the right side, right? So if I want to assign a group of students, for example, let's say I want to work with all of my first grade students. Here I clicked on grade 1, so it organized it by grade. I've got kindergarten first, and now here I have about 5 first graders. I want all of these, I know that all of these first graders are going to have the same lead teacher. So I'm going to select them all at once. And I do that, you can manually select them all at once by clicking on each box before each one. Or you can select the top one from the list, hold the Shift key down on your keyboard, and select the bottom one on the list while the Shift key is being held down. And if you do that, then all in that, from the top to bottom in that area will be highlighted. And you can select assign licenses. Oh, one already has a license, sorry. Assign licenses to selected, and then select the teacher's name who you want to do that. Who is going to be in charge of those students. Okay. Remember, if sorting is still not good enough for you, you can filter. You can come in here and say, you know what, I only want to see first graders, and then the rest fall off so that you can focus in on what you're working with. And to clear that, you simply click Reset Filter. All right, so I'm going to go back in my PowerPoint. I think I skipped ahead here because we went into account maintenance and I did licenses and lead teachers. So we already covered that, but on your handout, on that 3-page handout, you'll notice it tells you where you can access licensing and assigning lead teachers. There's staff module accessibility as well as student module accessibility. And then we will talk briefly about the Teams function. So let me just go back into the PowerPoint. Once we do that, then Michelle, who is on with us today, she is going to talk about importing and a little bit about signs for sound, not signs for sounds, single sign-on. We have abbreviations that are too close to each other. Okay, so the team function, sometimes with the lead teacher, people of course get concerned, well, what if multiple teachers need to access the same student, right? So under the team function, you can select teachers to be on a team. And what that means is that they can share a student. So let's say Mrs. Johnson is the homeroom teacher, but Mrs. Kennedy is the special ed teacher. Well, Mrs. Kennedy as the primary special ed teacher can add another teacher within the account to her team, and then all of the students assigned to Mrs. Kennedy will be able to be seen by that teacher. The staff member administration, you can also add team members by selecting their name and adding, oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. By selecting their name and clicking that team button. So you can see now Karen Johnson is on Mary Jane's team because I selected that team button. Again, that was under staff member administration. You select the teacher's name and simply click that team button. Now, teachers can also add colleagues to their team, so that is something that they are able to do. If you have a teacher who you've already added to the account, because when you add a teacher to the account, or anyone, I'm sorry, I should say, when you add any staff member to the account, they get an activation email that will provide them with the information they need to log in. Okay, so let's say you do that tomorrow and your teachers don't show up till mid-August and they have no idea where that email is, right? You can come in under the staff member button. So I'm going to start back at the home page so you know where I am here. So from the home page, if you go to the staff member administration button, if you click reset password, that will send an email to that teacher. So if in August, when they start coming back and they've already gotten those activation emails and a couple of them can't find them, that's where you can go to get that email resent. And that email provides their user ID, temporary password, account ID, and the URL link. Okay. Now, every once in a while, we have students who maybe try to log in as a teacher too many times, or there's for some, maybe a teacher can't remember a password and tries to log in too many times and the account gets locked. It's only locked for 30 minutes, so they will unlock eventually. But in the meantime, you can come in and click this unlock user ID button, and then that will allow the teacher to try again immediately. All right, so the last thing we're going to cover today has to do with our additional teacher tools for Read Live, which include rostering and single sign-on and importing student data. So I'm going to pass it over to Michelle, and she can unmute herself and begin talking about importing and rostering. Michelle is our tech expert, and so if you have technical questions, she is a wealth of knowledge. So she's going to do the hard part here with the importing. So over to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Claire. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. We appreciate your time. So importing, one way to enroll a group of students into Read Live is to schedule an import of student data using a CSV file. It can be created from a variety of applications, including Excel, your Google Sheets. You're able to create this CSV file. And many student management systems also export in that format. So you may be able to export data out of your student information systems to be used in this Read Live import. It is proprietary to us. It is our method for students who are logging into our native student module. Okay, so this is a native login to our application using a browser. It's important to know if you do have multiple schools in your account, you will have multiple imports. Okay. What else would I like to say? So Claire, if you could go ahead, log into the account, which we are, navigate to that student administration. And now from here, we're going to choose student import. And this is where we will be configuring and using to get our students added. Again, the CSV files for multiple students. You wouldn't do this for one or two. You would add them manually, but here we're talking about 30 or more or so. Right now, we're going to, the instructions are there, steps 1, 2, 3, 4. The detail is in that link that is provided in step 1. Claire's going to go ahead and open it. Excuse me. So this is the detail description and steps that are necessary in creating this CSV file. You don't necessarily need all this detail. We're going to just download this template that we have already listed here in the document, and we will open it up in Excel. And so this is what you're going to get. Now we're in a little bit of a transition here, and so we've got some changes that haven't yet made public, but right now we're just going to edit this document quickly, and in column G here we'll just right click, insert a new column, and we're going to title this column student space email. All right, so that is important. So just remember, insert that column and label it student space email. The required data that we need in this file is student first name, student last name, student grade. We will skip student ID, student user ID, student password. And now I will mention student email is not required, but it is highly recommended to be added. It will save you time down the road. However, I know not all students do have email addresses, but if you have one, please enter it. The contact relationship name information is for your parents and guardians. It's free form text. You would just type in contact in the contact relationship. You would type in mother, father, however you want to label that, the mother or father's first name, last name, and then their contact email, that contact's email address. This is going to allow you to email parents directly from the application, giving progress reports and other kind of reports from within Read Live. So that's a look at what the actual template looks like. So again, you're just going to fill it in with your student data. You're going to save this CSV file on your desktop or somewhere on your computer. And so once you have created that, you're going to go back into that import page for student administration, and we're going to browse now to the file that you just created. And our file right now, we're going to go with, let's go with the initial setup on the bottom one, Claire. And we are choosing a school. We can only import students for one school at a time. So let's pick Northview as our school today, and we're going to click next. So this is a list of the file that has the students in it. Again, first name, last name, that grade, student user ID, and student password, as well as their email address. Before I go on, I want to make a note about the student user IDs and passwords. This is what the students will use when they log into our student module. So you are creating this. So if your students already have something they know or they use that number or that identifier. And then I would suggest you use that as the password as well. So students on the login page will enter user ID and password, which are both the same. So they enter twice and they're logged in. It will ease your login troubles with students. All right, so we've reviewed, we're good with this. We'll click next. We'll say yes. And so now it's telling me that the students appear to have already been enrolled in Read Live, and this is true because I imported these students yesterday. So basically it's saying these are duplicates. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to update them? Or do you want me to not import them? In our case, I'm going to go with update. I know that the data is good, but this is something that you would want to make sure of. So we will choose update existing students, click next. And now the students will be imported tonight for Northview. And it's all been scheduled and you'll get a confirmation email when it is completed. Okay, so that's what a successful import of students looks like. Let's show you now what one looks like with some errors. So if we go with that import with errors, and we'll select Northview again and click next. It does list our students and everything so far looks good. Click next, we're just following the prompts and say yes. So now here it's telling me that there's something wrong. The students list appear to already be enrolled, and it wants us to make a decision. If you hover over those yellow highlighted fields, you'll see that the value for the existing student in the account is 6th grade, and we're saying we want it to be in 2nd grade. And this first other name, there's another user ID. So the account Johnson is being used by someone else as well. So what it wants us to do is you can print this up at the top, print matching records if you have a number of them, and that will give you a printout of your errors. Otherwise, we can choose to import or not import. And at this time, we can go ahead with do not import because I guess I'll make some changes. We'll click next and we'll proceed and say okay. And now we wait for tomorrow. So this process is an overnight process. Tomorrow, these students will be active and in the Read Live application. And what is your next steps would then be to use your licensing and lead teachers section from the handout that Claire has to get those students licensed. If we could go back to just the student administration and then student setup. These are those students that were imported. Okay, so, and it tells us that an import is scheduled. So we want just so you know that there's one in progress, so in case somebody logs in as another administrator. But that is importing, everybody. Oh, and I'm going to mention our Google rostering and single sign-on, as well as ClassLink and Clever. They're both all different processes. So what we're asking is just reach out to tech support here at Read Naturally, support@readnaturally.com, or our 800 number to get to support. We have a number of ways we can help get this single sign-on and rostering set up. It is a new concept and a new implementation for us. So we'd love to help you through that. And that's the end of importing. Claire, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. We're just going to wrap up today with just a little bit of information about some training resources that we have on our website and our help desk. So if we could get the link to our Smart Start guide in the chat box, that would be fabulous. I'm going to actually go back out again up from my PowerPoint for just a moment to show you our actual company website. So not the program website, but our Read Naturally company website. We have a tab on our readnaturally.com company website that lists training. We have online courses. You can schedule personal virtual seminars for, a district where you get a live presenter. We also have student training videos. So once everybody's up and running, we do have those videos, or your teachers are up and running, meaning they're in the program, the students have been added and licensed. Now the students need to be trained on how to do it. So we do have that available on our website as well. And then as was just added into the chat box, that is our Smart Start guide, which is a very helpful way to get information to get yourself started. And the Smart Start guide provides you with very detailed instructions about the things that you need to do to get started. So kind of the quick information about how to get yourself up and running. So that is a great resource. But I want to echo what Michelle said earlier, which is call us. We really do have fabulous tech support and customer service. You're not going to talk to a machine or sit on hold for hours. We are in from 8 to 5 Central Time on Monday through Friday. Do not spend time being frustrated. pick up the phone, give us a call. You'll get an actual person right away. And that is why we are here. So please be sure to do that. I do think we have about just a couple minutes. If somebody did have a question that popped up in the chat box or anything. I am not seeing anything. Christy, do you see any in there right now?
We don't have any questions yet. But I do, while I have an opportunity, I'm just going to remind everybody that we'll be sending out follow-up emails with links to the recording in about 24 hours, and to feel free to share those with their colleagues. There'll also be a survey at the end of the webinar. And if you could fill that out, that we would really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your time and your attention. We do hope to hear from you. So please reach out when questions arise. Have a great day.